Alright guys, 大家好, welcome back to Canton Lounge for another episode. And today we're going to talk a little bit about one of the most confusing, I think, topics in Cantonese, or people find it confusing. I think it's not too bad, but we'll see. Cantonese word order. Okay. So first off, we're going to talk a little bit about pedagogy and how to think about word order. First off, we have to understand that while Cantonese is, by and large, an SVO language, there are specific constructs that, as part of the construct, they break that word order, right? So each of these specific constructs need to be learned and studied individually. And second of all, Cantonese can be very flexible in terms of word order because of something called topicalization, and it's a common feature in Asian languages. And there are just so many ways that you can pretty much reorder your sentences, right? And so what this means is, to a lot of people, that sounds like, hey, it's difficult, right? Because there are no rules. So it's more difficult to kind of like tell what's wrong and what's right or wrong. But the other way to think about it, and that's my preferred way to think about it, it would be that flexibility equals to you should not be afraid to be wrong. So there's more, because there's more room for error. So that's it for now. Let's dive right in. So the first thing I want to talk a little bit about would be the expanded SVO word order, right? So we've got the subject, verb, and object here, but in between we want to sandwich time, manner, and place. If you remember this, you're pretty much good to go. Alternatively, you can also switch the time and subject like this. It's perfectly fine. So let's look at an example of this. So if you wanted to say in English, you might say, I watched Despicable Me 3 with a couple of friends in Mongkok last week. In Cantonese, you have to say,我 last week 上個禮拜 with friends together 同朋友一齊 in Mongkok 喺旺角所睇壞蛋掌門人 Despicable Me 3, right? And so you have the time, manner, and place sandwiched in between. Okay. So I would urge you to remember this example so you can have a point of reference in the future when making your own sentences. The second thing I want to talk about would be the questions, and how word order works when you're asking questions. So let's start with an answer and work our way backwards. The general rule is it's actually very simple. Questions need to follow the same word order as their answers, right? So when you have an answer for that question word, you need to replace that that answer with a question word in your question. So for example, you might say something like, I'm from Hong Kong, right? So in Cantonese, you have to say, 我係香港嚟嘅, right? And so you want to replace that with 邊度 in the exact same position. Sorry, this should say you are. 你係邊度嚟嘅呢? So you, where, come from, final particle. So maintain the position between the answer and the question, and you're good to go. Yep, so there we go, same position. Yep. And next we've got addresses and dates. This isn't really grammar, I guess, but it's important to know, so I thought I might mention it here. In English, we usually go from small to big, right? So you start with the room number and you work all the way up to a country. Well, in Cantonese, it's actually the reverse of that. So, for example, we have this address, right? 5th floor, Revenue Tower, 5th of Gloucester Road, Wan Chai, Hong Kong. We'd go the other way around. So, starting from here, Hong Kong, 香港, 灣仔, 告士打道, 稅務大樓, and then 5樓. Yep. So, just remember it's the reverse. And dates are the same. Friday the 7th of July 2017 would be 2017年7月7號. 星期五 is not really necessary. We don't usually say like days of the week in Chinese. So, all right, so that's all the time we have for this time. Next, in the next video, we're going to talk a little bit about exceptions.